when we step in, even if it seems fake or easy or stupid to some people, like, this is real. And the things that we encounter in the ring is as real as it gets. Summon the Spectre. What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 9 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I am your host, JariSpectre, and this is none other than the SpectreVerse. Thank you all for joining me on this Wednesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. We had a lot that happened in the world of pro wrestling over this week. We are going to be covering all of it here today. First and foremost, I do want to send my late thoughts and prayers to OVW referee Dallas Edwards. During a TV taping, he suffered a legitimate seizure while in the ring, and after watching it back, it is horrific to watch. So I hope he's doing well. I did see the update that he is alive and still doing all right. So thoughts and prayers still go out to him, his family, his friends. That is a very, very scary situation, which I've seen happen. Anyone that goes through a seizure, it's one of the scariest things in the world. So I'm glad he's at least doing all right. And as far as how it happened, only so many people can know how it happened. Obviously, you saw, if anybody that did see it, during a match, the referee took a crossbody, and he took it right. And as soon as he hit the mat, something just seemed off, and then that's where the rest was history. And so as soon as you step in those ropes, it doesn't matter who you are, your body and your life is in danger and can potentially be in danger. And so I just want to keep that in the front of everybody's minds as far as the world of professional wrestling goes. This shit ain't easy. When we step in, even if it seems fake or easy or stupid to some people, like, this is real. And the things that we encounter in the ring is as real as it gets. So keep that in the front of your minds, whether if you want to talk shit about the sport. And even if that is the case, I want to see you fucking try. That's my first and initial thoughts with that. As far as the competitors that were in the match, as far as they are concerned, I understand. I get it. When shit doesn't go right, people can go into panic mode. They go into improv mode. So many different things can happen. But my issue with the competitors that were in the ring was that it took them a solid minute to put 2 and 2 together. And even if they realized it right away, it took them a second for somebody to immediately be like, hey, let's stop whatever the hell we're trying to do in the ring, and let's care about this person that clearly is not doing well. But as you guys probably saw the video, they just kept going on with the match. And it wasn't until somebody at least stood up and said, hey, we need help, like, immediately. So I get it. I understand. I do feel like there should always be some sort of medical personnel in any sort of circumstance on site and ready to act whenever things do go awry, because you have no idea when they can go awry. And if they do, you need to have somebody or a professional there ready to help, ready to hop in and do whatever needs to get done. So those are my just very quick initial thoughts as far as that, because I saw that was a huge talking point throughout the week. And I just wanted to give my thoughts and prayers to Dallas Edwards once again, as well as his family and his friends. Now with that out of the way, we are going to cover quite a bit. We're going to do a little bit of a different format today. I'm not going to cover Dynamite. The only reason I'm not going to cover what happened on Dynamite is because we, over the weekend, got AEW Revolution, the pay-per-view, which I will get into my thoughts and opinions on that very quickly. I thought the show was great. I thought it was fantastic. AEW absolutely nailed it as far as Revolution goes. I do have my criticisms. I do have the things I love, the things I don't love, and we're going to touch upon that today. We're going to start with Smackdown and the big event of Randy Orton turning heel on Cody Rhodes. That was the major talking point for SmackDown. And then finally, we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw and how Oba Femi, just like that, became one of the biggest stars wrestling has seen in quite a very, very long time. We're going to talk about what happened, how it happened, and my thoughts and opinions on that, as well as the rest of the show. Once again, I want to thank you all for joining me on this Wednesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. If you are new here, please feel free to follow me on all social media. That is Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at JariSpectre. Facebook is kind of like a very weird place as far as social media goes, because that is where a lot of my professional wrestling fans follow me. Not a whole lot of people follow me on Twitter and Instagram. So if you are one of those fans, please feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well. It's where I talk a lot about like the things that I like. So video games, basketball, football, wrestling, all those fun things. And we're trying to get those numbers up. Got to start somewhere. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at JariSpectre. If you guys are new and are a fan of what you see, feel free to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications. I will say, I decided on Sunday to bring my friends on to the show, and by God, we hit it out of the park. I believe it was my very first video with over 100 views, and we just did a professional wrestling March Madness bracket. We ranked 16 wrestlers per division and then matched them up to see who was the final wrestler standing. It was fun. Obviously, I talked to all my buddies afterwards. They thought it was a blast. They want to keep doing it more and more, to be completely honest, which hey, that's what the SpectreVerse is for. This is for us having fun as wrestling fans and just fans of anything, point blank period. If you're fans of us, if you're fans of sports, wrestling, gaming, you name it, this spot is for you. So I hope you guys hit that subscribe button and hang out. We are going to be doing a lot of different things within the next couple of months, and I hope you guys stick around for all of that. Every Wednesday, I post a weekly podcast, kind of just talking about the world of professional wrestling mainly, as well as a little sprinkles of my life and any sort of sports that are going on. So specifically, like right now, March Madness is going on. Obviously, once football season starts to come sneaking around the corner this fall, we're going to talk about NFL, college football, and then every Thursday, I go live with video games. I play a slew of video games, and we kind of just, that's like our relaxation time, where I can come on here and interact with whoever wants to watch, and we can kind of just shoot the shit, have some fun. We can ask me anything. We can talk about anything. It's kind of like just that chill, we're here to hang out kind of vibe. So if you guys are interested in all that, like I said, please hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications. And also, if you are a fan of the page, please make sure you follow it on social media as well, Twitter and Facebook at the SpectreVerse. Like I said, we're trying to get those numbers up. I will be completely honest here as well. I was not expecting the SpectreVerse to get any sort of notoriety until after I retired from wrestling. However, it seems like word got out and a couple of you subscribed from watching the March Madness bracket, which thank you very much for, by the way. But maybe it was kind of like a wake-up call for me, because I'll be completely honest, like I said, I was not planning on promoting anything that I did on here until after the fact. But since word's gotten out and you guys seem to thoroughly enjoy it, maybe I should start promoting it a little bit more. But the only problem with that is I'm still in the game and I'm still doing this shit, and I've been busting my ass to get back inside that ring, because that is for sure my number one priority, and then obviously this will be my number two. But with the traction it's gotten, maybe I'll just promote it a little bit more. Something I still got to personally think about, but you got to start somewhere. But once again, thank you all very much for all the love and support. First and foremost, before we even hop into anything wrestling related, I do want to do a weekend recap, because I'll be completely honest, I know for a fact I forgot to do one last week, and I would be very, very foolish to not talk about my weekend this week. Over the weekend, Wisconsin and then the upper parts of the United States, the Midwest, we got hit with a insane snowstorm. That was first and foremost. Like, we're talking, some places got up to 30 inches of snow. Me and where I'm from, as far as the state of Wisconsin, we got kind of lucky. I think the highest I saw was 11 inches over by me, but we were also dealing with 40-mile-per-hour winds. I remember waking up Sunday morning and it was a whiteout outside. I could barely like see the fence line around my house. And that was kind of spooky scary, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, it gave me ample opportunity to focus on this, as well as a very important milestone that happened with me over the weekend. Me and my beautiful girlfriend just celebrated 1 year together. We originally were going to have reservations at a nice supper club. However, they forgot to tell us that the venue was privately booked that exact same day, and they did not reach out to us to be like, hey, by the way, your reservation is canceled due to this private event. So her and I show up, and immediately we're feeling out of place. You got chain smokers, people not dressed up, and I'm sitting there in line thinking, what the fuck is going on? So I go in there with her, and I'm just like, hey, I just saw there's a sign that's saying that the venue is closed. Can somebody please explain what's going on to me? So then they call in the banquet manager, comes over, talks to us as we're standing behind this 50-50 raffle table looking thing. And as we were explaining the situation, he's just like, oh no. And now he's kind of in like a bit of a panic, because at this point, I have like the most resting bitch face I think I've ever had in my entire life. And I was ready to blow a gasket. So he's like, let me go grab the owner. So then the owner of the supper club comes out and talks to both of us personally. And he was just like, I am so sorry. Somebody should have reached out to you. That's on us. Here's a $50 gift card. We would love to have you back at a date that place isn't, closed. So I said, all right, fine. So I decided to then take her to one of my personal favorite restaurants, and it was beautiful. We got to sit in this nice little dining room. We had very, very good food. She had a shiitake chicken, which was phenomenal. I had a New York strip, medium rare, obviously. And that was, everything about that was chef's kiss. It was perfect. And then after that, we had some really nice drinks. We had nice dessert. And then we came back here, watched a movie, and that was really about it. So overall, it was a fantastic weekend, a very memorable weekend. And on top of that, we decided to get each other some anniversary gifts, because obviously it's the first one. You got to go a little above and beyond. And so I got her and I nice little cute matching hoodies. She got like a crew neck of her favorite colors, and I bought myself a matching hoodie for a color that I don't really have in my closet, which I've been wanting. So I got that. She got me some new beats for the gym, which I was absolutely gobsmacked by. I've never ever once been given like brand new headphones for a gift. So that was a shocker. And then she also got me a weightlifting belt for when I do squats. So now I got my own belt, which is fantastic because obviously, like, thinking really, really long term, I do want to have my own home gym, especially once I get out of this apartment. So that is something that I was like, I didn't realize I needed it until I got it. And then she also got me some really cute stuff. I got this little matching bracelet that I'm now wearing, as well as she's also got one in her colors as well. So that was really, really cute. So overall, my weekend was fantastic. And then I spent Sunday night watching AEW Revolution, but we're not going to start there. But instead, we are going to start with Friday night Smackdown that happened on Friday. To start the show, Drew McIntyre comes out from the crowd and he is pissed because last week he lost his WWE title to Cody Rhodes, which in theory, Cody should have never been in the opportunity to challenge him for the title after losing at the Chamber. So Cody Rhodes is the new WWE champ. Drew McIntyre, on the other hand, is pissed out of his mind. He comes out and he blames Nick Aldis, and he says that his golden boy got a title rematch and it ended up winning it back. Like I said, Aldis then comes out and says the only person he should be blaming is himself because he's the one that he thought he could get away with everything that he was doing, which that was the story that he was telling as champion, is every action that he had would eventually have consequences. And it kept building and building and building until last week. So that was the story of Drew McIntyre's title reign. And so he comes out and says that Drew literally screwed himself. Then Drew calls Nick Aldis a stooge for giving the title back to his corporate champion. Aldis then gets pissed and said he did everything to keep Cody away from the title, and he understands why, because Cody beat him. Drew then storms from the announce table into the ring and said all of this is bullshit and Nick Aldis needs to make it right. That's where Jacob Fatu then interrupts and he comes out and says that Drew wouldn't be champion if it wasn't for him and that he fixed the situation last week and he isn't champ right now because of him. He says he screwed his ass and says, what the hell are you going to do about it? Drew McIntyre's just like, oh, you want to know what I'm going to do about it? And then he walks up to Nick Aldis and he says, I quit. And then he storms through the crowd and through backstage. So storyline wise, Drew McIntyre is just so fed up and he thinks that this is all bullshit. Screw you all. I quit. That leads into the next segment. MFTs are backstage. And the Wyatts are not contenders. They're very, very thrilled about that. And they still got the lantern on top of that, even though technically Solo lost to Uncle Howdy last week. Solo then gives the lantern to Tama Tonga and tells him to guard it with his life. Which that leads right into a match between the Wyatt Six and the MFTs. We had Uncle Howdy and Eric Rowan versus Solo and Tama Tonga. Uncle Howdy, I will say, actually like sitting down and thoroughly watching everything that was happening on tonight's show, Uncle Howdy has gained some weight. Like, he doesn't look in the best shape in the world. And I get it, but at the same time, like, dog, you are on TV and you're used at least weekly. Although the fans are very much like, we could care less, they're still using you. You still got to look the part. You got to act the part. All of this stuff, unless I don't know. Me, I cannot imagine being on TV weekly and letting myself go. That's just, it's a me personal thing. Obviously, I know he's still in the gym. He's still doing his thing. And it's not like he's awful in the ring. Like, he's solid. I will say, though, his presentation, as far as, like, what he wears and all that fun stuff, it doesn't look good. I will say, it's something about Uncle Howdy, for me personally, just looks weird. And the match itself, nobody really cared about from the beginning. It was a very, very simple tag match. Towards the end, Nikki Cross takes the lantern, which distracts Solo, and that's where Uncle Howdy hits Sister Abigail to win the match. So the Wyatt Six win. As Nikki is about to hand the lantern back to Uncle Howdy, as soon as Uncle Howdy gets his hands on it, the MFTs immediately attack him and steal the lantern again. My only thought is that this is going to lead either towards a WrestleMania match between the Wyatts and the MFTs for the lantern once again, or if they're smart, because honestly, this does not deserve to be on WrestleMania, they do it the Friday go-home show, and that's where you have the Wyatt Six finally reign supreme, and they get the lantern back fully. But this shit does not deserve to be on WrestleMania, and quite frankly, nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares about the Wyatt Six and the MFTs. It's a nice little feud, which you need good feuds, and at least they're trying to tell a story, but nobody cares. That's the problem. Like, nobody's invested enough in the MFTs or the Wyatts. So it's just like, if the people don't care about what you're giving them, then it doesn't deserve to be on a grand stage like WrestleMania. That's just my 2 cents. Jade Cargill versus Michin. Can already kind of tell where this match is going to go as soon as I say Michin and Jade Cargill. There was nothing exciting about this match. It was a fine match. It was fine, but there was nothing exciting about it. And like I said, it's really hard to get invested into a Michin. And it's not her fault. It's honestly not her fault, because she's a decent worker. I will give her that. And Jade is coming along. Granted, I don't feel like it's WWE Championship coming along. However, she's working at it. And like, I feel like she fits the structuring of a WWE superstar compared to like what she was doing in AEW, even though it's almost like a mirror image. At least the structuring of like matches fits her a little bit better. But that doesn't mean that she's good. She's passable, so you kind of got to give her a little bit of credit. But this essentially was a glorified squash match. Post-match, Jade Cargill grabs the mic and says, "This is what happens when wrestlers believe in their own hype." Just like Rhea Ripley, she doesn't look to Rhea as a threat, and she isn't scared of anything. That's when Rhea Ripley then interrupts her and gets into the ring, but as soon as she slides in, Jade rolls out. Rhea then grabs the mic and says she runs from a real fight. She also says that she isn't the embodiment of female empowerment, and after WrestleMania, she will just be her bitch. I get that they're trying to build up hype for the match, which granted on paper, Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley, that is, you throw that shit on a graphic, people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to tune into this. But then once it's time to execute, what kind of Jade are we going to get on WrestleMania night 1? Because I'm assuming it's going to be on either night 1. Well, maybe. Let me think about this. If I were structuring WrestleMania, I guess I would put it on night 2, kind of towards the middle. Because you obviously got to give these women time. This is your main event for the women's division. You got to give them some time. So maybe it is night 2 that they do this. But either way, Rhea is going to be solid. Rhea is Rhea. It's what kind of Jade are we going to get when WrestleMania rolls around? I really hope we get the one that balls out. And I'm assuming the match that they're going to put together and the producer that's going to produce the match are going to do their absolute damnedest to make sure that happens. But either way, me personally, I'm still not invested or excited about this. I should be. And part of me I really want the women to succeed. I want this to be like a standout match from Mania. But the problem is the story itself that they're trying to tell isn't matching. It's not leading up to that same thing. It's literally like, as soon as WrestleMania comes around, and this is kind of just me going on a tangent. When WrestleMania rolls around, you should be like in the thick of all of your stories. Granted, you got to tell stories to get your outcomes and to be able to even do this. But if your stories are lackluster, everything else is going to feel lackluster. And WWE is feeling that right now. So you can do your WrestleMania tickets on sale for $316 off because Austin 316 Day was yesterday. Either way, I don't think anybody's going to be paying that high a price for tickets to watch Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill, specifically that match, for whatever story they're trying to tell. God honest truth. I hate to say it, because I do appreciate both women, both competitors, but that's just the God honest truth. Anyways, then we get to a backstage segment between Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn. This segment was very, very good. Sami says congratulations on winning the title back to Cody. That's where Rhodes says that he knows he said the exact same thing to Randy when he won the Chamber. Cody then asks if Sami just wants a title shot, and he's starting to get more and more aggravated with Sami. Sami said he's the only one that said that to Randy because he looks up to Randy. But he doesn't look up to Cody, and that's because they're friends. He views each other as equals. Cody then says he looks up to Sami, though, and praises him up and down. And that's where Cody starts to get a little more aggravated as this backstage segment is going on. He gets very, very frustrated and says, "You don't have to look up to me, but you can look up to this title," and that's where he storms off. Sami then gets blown up into frustration, and that's where he hears Zelina Vega laughing in the background. And that's where her and Aleister Black show up and says, "All of this chasing the world title, do you think it's not meant for you?" And then Sami tells Aleister very angrily to stay away from him. As these backstage segments keep progressing, the more I'm sensing the Sami Zayn heel turn. That's just where I feel like this storyline is going. How will that play into the factor of what we get in the main event contract signing, especially because of where I feel this could potentially go and as the length that I feel like it could potentially go? That remains to be seen. But I feel like with Sami, they're going to drag this out as long as they possibly can. But I'm here for it. Like, this character development. People need character development. Cody has a little bit of character development. Even if they're not trying to, there is some character development. Obviously, we got Randy. Drew has some character development. Jacob is just Jacob. Everybody, like, you can't control a guy like Jacob Fatu. But, like, these people and these wrestlers need character developments. Obviously, you have your gimmick and you have what you're going to do. But if you're not developing character and being able to tell internal long-term stories with said characters, then what are we doing? So this is like the stuff that I live for. Being able to be like, Sami has been the diehard babyface through and through for the past how many years? And now that he keeps losing when it matters, it's finally starting to eat at him, and it's actually being portrayed perfectly so far. I do feel like it's going to lead eventually to a match with Aleister, and realistically, if they want to go the heel Sami route, have Aleister beat Sami, and that's what sends him into this deep, deep spiral. And then if they eventually want to get Kevin Owens involved in some way, shape, or form, this is me fantasy booking, obviously, because with Kevin's health, it's kind of a bit of a toss-up still, but that would be interesting. And I feel like that would get a lot of people talking, because that's what wrestling is all about. Getting the fans to consistently talk about things that are important. And that's a very, very common theme. The problem is right now, they don't have enough to keep people talking about why it should be important. But like I said, the backstage segment was probably the second best thing on this show. Lash Legend and Nia Jax versus Charlotte and Alexa for the tag titles. Before the match starts, the Bellas come out and say that they are next in line for the tag titles. Charlotte and Nia are on the outside of the ring, and towards the end of the match, Nikki Bella gets pushed into a big boot from Charlotte by Nia. That's where Alexa goes up for Twisted Bliss, but Brie Bella then attacks Lash Legend to cause the DQ finish. So the Bellas are obviously heels, and they just screwed Charlotte and Alexa out of the titles against Nia and Lash Legend. And then towards a backstage segment that happened on later in the show, she said, per Nick Aldis, the Bellas are next in line because technically the babyface is lost. So what this leads to, it's a multi-women tag match for the tag titles. Why? Fuck if I know. Then we had another tag match. Los Garza versus Damian Priest and R-Truth. Another solid tag match. Really nothing of note. Ends with a double AA / South of Heaven from Priest and Truth. A little more momentum going into WrestleMania. Obviously, they're going to fight for some sort of, probably the SmackDown tag titles. And if not, that will be another multi-tag team match, because why not? Everybody loves multi-tag team matches for whatever reason. Miz TV. Miz brings out Jelly Roll, and he talks about Jelly's story, as he says how impressive it is. He is sick of hearing about his redemption story. Miz started fat shaming him, and Jelly Roll immediately gets up and defends himself. I will say, Jelly Roll, shockingly enough, cuts a very good pro wrestling promo, especially as a defensive babyface. Like, hearing him on the mic, I was just like, holy cow, he's actually like, he's got some fire, and he's actually like decent. That's where Kit Wilson then comes out and calls out Jelly Roll. Jelly says everyone secretly likes Kit Wilson, so why is Kit Wilson just saying all these bad things about Jelly Roll? Kit says Jelly Roll is fat phobic, and he shoves him, and that's where Miz holds back Kit, and that's when Jelly Roll then punches Miz in the face. Essentially, I feel like it's going to set up a celebrity match between Miz and Kit Wilson versus Jelly Roll, and I mean, you could literally throw anybody in there. I know the talk as of right now is to put Royce Keys with Jelly Roll. I don't hate it, and that I do feel like they need to get Powerhouse Hobbs / Royce Keys on TV. I know he's been doing a lot of dark matches. I feel like now is the time to get him on TV, get him exposure to the casual wrestling audience, because otherwise when WrestleMania rolls around, they're going to be like, oh yeah, Jelly Roll and the other guy beat Miz and Kit Wilson, because obviously you know that the Miz and Kit are going to lose at Mania, especially if you're going against a celebrity. But you don't want to be looked at as the other guy in a celebrity match. So they need to get him on TV and get him on TV fast, if that is the route that they're going to go. Then we had another backstage segment with Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov. Ilya says he is fighting two very extremes: all the confidence in the world and all of the self-doubt. He cannot simply just live in peace. Carmelo then says he shoots shots to make shots, just like Bam Adebayo, because that is another thing that happened over the week. Bam Adebayo, 83-point game. Fuck it. I might actually talk about this after I'm done with this segment. And thinking that there's a different reason he doesn't want to fight him, Ilya says he cannot fight him because he is too busy fighting himself. Realistically, this is going to set up Ilya versus Carmelo at WrestleMania. Obviously, they're trying to convey some sort of story, but it's just not, as far as like what we're seeing on TV, there's not enough substance. They're trying to at least tell the story of, okay, Ilya was on a losing streak and now he just doubts himself. But if you're going at Carmelo Hayes, who is the champion, you can't have the babyface champion trying to befriend this guy who feels bad about himself for losing just so that he can get a title shot, unless that is the route that they go, and that's where Ilya turns heel. But at the same time, is that the right move to turn Ilya heel? I know he could be great as a heel. He has the look for it. But will people care? And that is the big question. I know right now, I don't think anybody would care, which is a problem. Even if he stays babyface, I don't think they're going to care nearly as much. They're just going to expect, oh, these guys are going to put on a banger. But yet, we've seen this on SmackDown how many fucking times now. It's really going to be hard to get people invested. And then, because I am a Miami Heat fan, Bam Adebayo, 83 points. Breaks Kobe Bryant's record, second most in an NBA game ever, behind Wilt Chamberlain's 100. A lot of people talked a lot of smack on social media saying that, oh, he was fouled how many times? He had this many free throws, blah, 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 blah. He had 31 points in the first quarter. 31. I believe it was by the end of the third quarter, he had 63. And you wonder why in the fourth quarter they just kept trying to foul him? It's because they couldn't stop him. Even if they tried to stop him. Now, granted, part of that is because the Washington Wizards as a basketball team is hot garbage. Sorry, Wizards fans. Your team is trash. That's why Bam dropped 83 points on you. And so, yes, a lot of people can be like, oh, the majority of his shots were free throws. Okay, then stop him without fouling him. And then as far as the team aspect goes, let me get this straight. You're going to blame the team and the coaches and the organization for seeing a player that you built from the ground up finally get on this huge stretch. 63 points in 3 quarters is impressive enough as is. But now you're going to try to alter that because nobody should break Kobe Bryant's 81-point record. Hell, if Kobe, God rest his soul, if Kobe was still alive, I guarantee you he would have been over the moon about somebody breaking his record. Now, I don't know as far as like the logistics of how it was done because let's face facts, NBA is soft. There's no sugarcoating it. That's just how it is now. But are you really think the late great Kobe Bryant would be upset if somebody broke his 81-point record? No. Records are meant to be broken. That's why they're there. And Bam deserves all the love and the praise that came his way. There's been a lot of slander about it. But what do you expect? And as far as Eric Spoelstra and his teammates for purposely trying to stop the clock so that he could get there, that shows more team bonding and team camaraderie more than anything because they saw how well he was doing. Hey, you think you can go and break that record? Fuck it. Let me help you. That's at least my thought process on it. Could I be wrong? I'm sure everybody's going to have their opinions on it. I've read just about every opinion on it. And some people, they're like, oh, I like Bam, but he's not a baller like that. Now, that's neither here nor there. That's only time will truly, truly tell that. But either way, he broke a record that nobody thought was going to be broken. That deserves praise. Enough said, case closed. Tiffany Stratton, Kiana James. They squared off in a match. It was a very traditional standard match. Tiffany wins with the prettiest moonsault ever because honestly, there really wasn't anything of note in this match. And I believe, I don't know if she said it, but it sounds like the talk is to have Tiffany Stratton versus Julia at WrestleMania for the US title, which even if Tiffany wins the US title, I feel like that's a nice little, I don't want to say it's below her level, but without being in that main event scene, maybe her building up some of the women in the US division or just that mid card will help. I will say though, Chelsea Green is over as hell. And once she is fully back to full strength with her ankle, they need to put a rocket ship on her. She is so entertaining and she is very, very good. And I think it's time to give her her due. Jacob Fatu, Trick Williams, another very solid singles match. This match was actually like, it had me fairly invested. Both men are right in the perfect spots that you want to be. Because you're like technically still in the main event picture, but you're a little below the main title picture. Drew McIntyre, towards the end of the match, ended up attacking Jacob Fatu when the ref was distracted with Trick. Then Trick Williams hit 2 trick shots for the win. So Trick Williams beats Jacob Fatu due to the help of Drew McIntyre. And that's where Drew then hits a Claymore on Jacob Fatu. My one gripe about not the match itself, I thought was perfectly executed. The gripe I have with WWE is you had Drew McIntyre quit during the show. Not even an hour and a half later, he is back costing Jacob Fatu, and not a single referee, not a single producer, manager, nobody, no security, nobody went out to stop him. So why would you have him quit in the opening segment of the show? Especially if you want to create this illusion like, oh my God, is he actually quitting? Is he actually done? Just for him to come back not even like an hour and a half later. Like, what are we doing? Like, none of that shit made sense. You should have just been like, if that was the case, you should have just had Drew McIntyre at the opening segment instead of saying, I quit. Literally just have him like pace angrily and then just storm off. And then that's where he cost Jacob Fatu later on. That would have made more sense. But having him quit, for what reason? It just doesn't make sense to me. And then finally, we had the main event of SmackDown. It was the contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. Cody says his piece first. He says his first match in WWE was in 2007, and it was against Randy. And ever since then, Cody has always looked up to Randy. He said when he returned to WWE, Randy was the only one that was always strictly by his side, and he is proud to be called his boy. And right after he says that, Cody immediately signs the contract. Randy then says Cody doesn't understand, and Randy needs this. He wanted it to be Drew McIntyre. It shouldn't have had to be this way. And that's where Cody immediately cuts him off and says he will take this weight off of his shoulders by saying this. We want the best Randy. The people want the Viper, the youngest world champion ever, the man that holds the 3 most dangerous letters in WWE, RKO. We want that Randy. And no matter what, as soon as the bell rings the second time, at the end of the day, Cody said, I will still love you. That's where Randy then signs the contract, shakes Cody Rhodes' hands, and immediately smashes his head into the table, gives him a low blow, and just beats the ever-living dog piss out of Cody Rhodes. He is slamming him on the outside, threw him on top of the announce table, busted him wide open, pounding punches. He then hits him with the steel steps and sets the steps up on, not necessarily on the announce table, but he has it. So like, here's the tip of the announce table. He set the steps up like this. So at an angle. And then he just lays Cody Rhodes' head right in between the crevice of the steel steps for where the turnbuckle goes. And as that's happening, security and agents and all these people run out to stop him. And that's where Randy runs off for a second. We think he's going to the back and that the show's going to go off the air with just a visual of bloodied Cody Rhodes. But then you hear the crowd start to cheer a little bit more. Randy sprints from the crowd back out with a steel chair, hops up on the announce table, and smashes it on top of the steel steps where Cody Rhodes' head was. Holy fuck. That visual in of itself was wild. I've never seen that done, and it was done perfectly. Perfectly. And the cool part about it is Wrestlers Mindset 101. That was so safe, and it looked killer. Because that's what you want as a wrestler. You want your shit to be safe, yet look like it fucking killed somebody. Absolutely perfect. And that's where Randy then grabs the steel chair again, rolls back into the ring, sets up the chair, he sits down, and he picks up the WWE title, and he sits with it in his lap as the show goes off the air. That main event segment was the best part of SmackDown. The matches, nothing excited about the matches. The segments were okay. They could have been done better. Obviously, the Sami Zayn backstage segment would have been the best part of the show if it wasn't for this main event contract signing. I'm glad they pulled the trigger when they did, and the questions are now answered. Randy Orton's going to be the heel at WrestleMania. But now the question is, what do we do at WrestleMania? Do you have your babyface golden boy Cody Rhodes retain the WWE Championship? Or do we have some screwy finish where Randy Orton wins the title for the 15th time because of the dastardly heel that he is, and that we can milk this out even longer and to make it feel that much more important? I say you need to have Randy Orton win that title at WrestleMania and then have him just go on a rampage. Just have him go ballistic. Have this bleed into SummerSlam. And then if they really want to revisit Hell in a Cell, I don't think a single person would complain about a Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton Hell in a Cell match. But that's my immediate thought. Like, this feud should last all of 2026. Unless they want to take some twists and turns here and there. But I personally think this story does not need any twists and turns. It just needs violence. Pure violence, hatred, you name it. That's what this needs. So outside of that main event, SmackDown was boring. It was very boring. Nothing exciting happened. Nothing new happened. I feel like WrestleMania, as far as the SmackDown side of things go, it is very much in this rinse and repeat, copy and paste bullshit. And the stories, other than the main event, they're not progressing like they should. And that's going to be a problem. Obviously, the casuals are not going to care less because, oh, it's WrestleMania. Everything's important. But the storylines themselves, other than Cody and Randy, and obviously Sami Zayn, there's nothing. Nothing. Which sucks. As far as a wrestler watching wrestling, that sucks. And I can only imagine what the actual fans like true diehard fans feel about this. But that was SmackDown in a nutshell. Like I said before in the beginning, we are not going to touch upon Dynamite because AEW Revolution happened over the weekend on Sunday night. Like I said in the beginning, I thought, and this is just me personally, I thought this show was fantastic. Is it a top 5 pay-per-view that AEW's ever done? No. But every single match I thought personally was great. There weren't any major like fuck ups, no botches, everything was consistently good. And then you had your standout great matches. FTR and the Young Bucks shocked me. I was not thrilled about seeing another FTR Young Bucks match, and I'll be honest, I ate my words. Both teams are fantastic in the ring still, which is great. Moxley and Takeshita. That match was phenomenal. And Moxley has been on a reign of terror as far as matches goes. I feel like his in-ring ability is underrated as shit. And it made me actually think while watching, man, if only he cared about this stuff so much more consistent. Because lately, the last couple months, he has been on a match terror. And he has just been absolutely killing it. Made me think back to like Dean Ambrose times before he started to hate WWE and hate what he was doing. Like he was putting on stellar matches back then. It's just like, man, what if we always had like that caliber of wrestler with Dean Ambrose / Moxley? Holy shit, things would be so much different. And then obviously we had the Texas Death Match. That was the biggest talking point for the show. And we're going to dive into all of that starting now. Revolution starts with the Young Bucks versus FTR for the tag team titles. I do love that the Bucks were wearing the LA Lakers colors and FTR was wearing the Boston Celtics colors. That was a nice little nod, and I do appreciate that. Both teams were leaking blood very early in this match. I will say the gripe that I have about this match, it didn't need blood. I understand why they did it, but I don't think it was necessary. But this match was a war. There was a barrage of super kicks. Stokely blocked the Bucks' finish, and then that's where they get hit with the Shatter Machine with a very close near fall. Then FTR hit a barrage of super kicks and then hit the FTR driver. Another very near fall. Babyfaces, the Bucks ended up taking over. There were so many fun falsies in this match. Except, I will say, the amount of times I saw somebody kick out at 1 on this show pissed me off. I hate the 1 count. It worked for Kenny and Ospreay at Forbidden Door, and now everybody feels like they need to do a 1 count. It defeats the purpose of things being legitimate. Nowhere, and I repeat, nowhere should there ever be another 1 count. That's my God honest opinion. I fucking hate the 1 count. But that happened in this match, but the crowd got super hyped for it. It's a very cheap pop. And then they ended up hitting a super Shatter Machine off the top rope for the win. So FTR beats the Young Bucks. And then post-match, the lights go out. And that is where Adam Cope, returns. And he goes to take out FTR. And as he's standing on the stage, Christian Cage's music also hits. And that's where Christian Cage slides behind FTR and attacks them. Cope then runs down, and they stand tall, holding the tag titles. So, seems like they're going to lead to a Cope and Christian versus FTR match which I'm assuming then we're going to have Cope and Christian win the tag titles. Will they do it at Double or Nothing? Will they do it at All In? That remains to be seen, but you already know for a fact that's where they're going to head with this. Marina Shafir versus Toni Storm. Marina smacks Toni before the bell even rings, eats instant heat to start. The match was very solid. Toni wins with a strong headbutt to Marina's face, right into a small package. And then post-match, who comes out but Ronda Rousey as Toni Storm is laying taunting on the stage. Ronda Rousey enters the ring and calls down Toni Storm, and Toni then sprint walks almost to the ring, and they have a nice little stare down, and that immediately transitioned into the next match, which was, in fact, Jon Moxley versus Konosuke Takeshita for the Continental Championship. This was a very back and forth match, I will say. Mox targeted Takeshita's leg, and like I said in the beginning, Mox is a very underrated wrestler, and I will stand on it. Towards his latter run as Ambrose, you could tell he was just mentally checked out, like he just did not care about wrestling whatsoever. And he was very much just going through the motions compared to like what he's doing now. Like, I will say, are there things about the Death Riders that I am very nitpicky on? Yes. Is there a reason why I'm nitpicky on it? Yes. But overall, I feel like they're like within the grasp of something very, very cool, but they can't seem to just capitalize on it because they treat the Death Riders like a heel team, but Mox is clearly a babyface. And how can you have a heel team with a babyface leader? That just doesn't make sense. So, if I were Tony Khan, turn the Death Riders babyface, make them the cool, badass ass kickers, and just watch what happens. That's just what I would do. Takeshita got busted open around the halfway mark in this match. Keep in mind, this match did not have a time limit. That was the stipulation. This match was phenomenal. It was paced very, very well, and the pace actually picked up towards the second half of the match. Very close back and forth near falls, with Mox hitting the Death Rider and Takeshita hitting a pile driver. And then Mox ended up beating Takeshita with a nice technical chokeout. And then post-match, this is where things got even more interesting. Lights go out as Jon Moxley is about to exit over the barricade with the Death Riders. The lights go out and a video package starts, and it's a doctor. Looks like he's in this very technical lab, and inside this chamber is a man. But that man ended up being Will Ospreay. That's right, the Billy Goat. His music plays, he runs down to the ring, takes out the entire Death Rider group, and then as he's about to take out Moxley, he sneaks out and runs away. Will Ospreay is back, and he's back with a vengeance to take out the Death Riders and Jon Moxley once again. That is going to be very, very fun, very, very exciting. And I popped big because I was not thinking they were going to bring him back this soon, but here we are, and I'm all for it. Very much all for it. Women's tag titles, Megan Bayne and Lena Cross versus Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale. During the 0 hour, Willow got banged up in her match, so she was already doing double duty, and she's definitely feeling it. Heels attack before the match even starts. There weren't really anything of note in this match. It seemed like it actually ended very, very quickly, like maybe their times probably got cut right before they went out, but Lena Cross ends up winning the match for her and Megan Bayne with a slam. So now we got new women's tag champs, Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. I do feel like it was supposed to be Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, but obviously because Penelope is legitimately hurt, Lena took her spot, and that is your new tag team champions. And honestly, I think Megan Bayne deserves it. She has earned it. She's got great character, great ring presence, great moveset. She's very, very solid in the ring. Kudos to her. Keep up the hard work. Very, very happy for them. But yeah, we got some new women's tag champs. What does that look like going forward? We're going to have to wait and find out. The most dangerous men in AEW, Swerve Strickland versus Brody King. They ended up exchanging blows to start. Brody King then chops him down, goes for the cannonball, and gets caught with a house call right into a double stomp on the apron for the original cutoff. They used the apron, the floor, and the barricade as weapons throughout this match. This match was brutal, and it was very, very brutal. Swerve muscled up Brody King and powerbombed him on the apron, which looked sick. And then Brody ends up hitting a flying crossbody off the top rope. They end up spilling back to the outside, and that's where Swerve hits a vertebreaker onto the concrete floor, which lifting up Brody King in of itself is a feat. And then hitting a vertebreaker onto concrete was just sickening. But Swerve ends up winning the match with 3 more house calls. 1, 2, 3. Swerve Strickland wins. After the match, Swerve Strickland then beats up on Brody King once more. And then guess whose music hits? None other than Kenny Omega. That's right. He went from Japan. He was in Japan earlier that day. I think it was for an anime convention, a video game convention, whatever it was that he was in Japan for. He flew back to the States just for the run-in with Swerve Strickland. So on top of that, we now have Edge/Cope, Christian, Ronda Rousey, Will Ospreay, and Kenny Omega all returning in the same show. I was not expecting him to be there, but obviously they're going to progress this storyline between Kenny and Swerve, which great. You got to keep doing it. I didn't think they were going to do it tonight, which was a shocker to me at least, but it was cool to see Kenny back. Chris Statlander versus Tekla, 2 out of 3 falls for the women's title. This was a very back and forth match. The crowd was pretty out of it during this match, I'm not going to lie. Tekla ended up getting the first fall. Statlander got the second fall. You know how 2 out of 3 falls matches work. Heel with the first, Baby with the second. Oh my God, who's going to win the third? Tekla took the ref's belt off after a ref bump, and Chris ended up getting a hold of the belt and then proceeds to whip Tekla with it. The Toxic Triangle then come out, and they get beaten up immediately with the belt. Tekla then gets the 1-up when the ref gets back up and distracts Chris Statlander while trying to get his belt back. And that's where she ends up getting the win. 1, 2, 3. Tekla retains the women's championship. I will say, Tekla is starting to grow on me. I really was unfamiliar with her prior to AEW, but she is growing on me quite a bit. And once again, I feel like something is missing with Chris Statlander. I don't know what it is, and I feel bad because we all know how great Chris Statlander is, but something is missing, and I just can't put my finger on it. Mystico and Jet Speed versus the Don Callis family, which was Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, and Kazuchika Okada for the trios titles. Mystico was insanely over in this match. This was high pace from the babyface. Heel slowed the pace down so much during the match. The pacing itself was great. A lot of nice sequences by all the competitors. Faces end up getting the upset win when Kevin Knight hit the UFO. Very, very well done. And then after the match, as they're celebrating in the ring, Mystico sees a graphic that pops up saying Mystico is now all elite. So that was really cool to see. I was not expecting Jet Speed and Mystico to win the trios titles, but they did, and they got a really nice reaction for it. That's fantastic. My question, though, is where is the connection between Jet Speed and Mystico? Why was that just so, kind of thrown together? That just boggles my mind. But either way, it's still a very solid match. You ain't going to hear complaints from me. Then we had Andrade versus Bandito. This match was awesome. Very back and forth, lucha chaining to start. The crowd ended up giving a "take your pants off" chant, which I thought was funny. Bandito then took his pants off, but Andrade then took him out immediately after that. The ref was talking in Spanish the entire time. I believe it was Aubrey Edwards, which I thought was a nice little unique whole thing about the match. Like anytime they're out on the outside, she's counting in Spanish. Anytime there's a cover, she's counting in Spanish. Anytime there's a submission hold, instead of saying, "Do you give up? Are you going to give up?" she's asking those questions in Spanish. I just thought that was a really, really nice, minute detail that she was doing. Andrade then slowed the pace down and took his pants off during the heat. Bandito hit a German suplex into the corner, and Andrade rocked his head on the bottom rope / turnbuckle. That looked sick as hell. I thought he was legitimately concussed. This match was amazing. We had 3 amigos from Andrade right into 3 German suplexes from Bandito and multiply that by 2. That was a nice little sequence. But Andrade ends up getting the win with the double underhook spinning plex off of the second rope. Very, very well done. You knew this match was going to be a banger, and by God, it was. Then we had the Dogs, Clark Connors, Gabe Kidd, and David Finlay versus Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, and Roderick Strong in a Tornado 6-man tag. This match started off hot on the outside immediately. It was very chaotic and very hard hitting. Darby Allin then zip-tied Gabe Kidd to the stage. So now it's a 2-on-3, and the babyfaces end up getting the win when Roderick hit the end of Heartache. Honestly, this match should have just been on Dynamite. It did not deserve to be on Revolution. And we'll touch upon that after we touch upon the main event. Because my only main critique is that there were way too many matches on this show. This show started at 7 p.m. Central Time. It didn't get done until 11:45 at night. That is a lot of wrestling. When realistically, there shouldn't have been that much wrestling. Main event. MJF versus Hangman Adam Page in a Texas death match for the AEW World Title. If Hangman loses, he can no longer compete for the world title ever again. Before the match even started, Hangman comes out to the ring with barbed wire around his arm, and a video package plays as MJF is riding a cowboy, and he ended up pissing on Hangman Page's grave. That video package cracked me up so much. MJF is so talented. And I did appreciate his entrance gear with the poncho and the hat in honor of Terry Funk. I thought that was fantastic. Hockey fight to start. Hangman slams MJF into some broken glass and drags him through it. MJF was soaked in blood as he got barbed wire wrapped through his mouth, almost like a chomping bit for a horse. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where he essentially took the barbed wire and like wrapped it inside of his mouth and was yanking it back. Very, very sick stuff. MJF then returns the favor to the Hangman. Both men are all bloodied. MJF grabs a syringe from underneath the ring and sticks it through the bottom lip of Hangman's mouth, and the camera guy got a nice up close and personal shot as you see the needle sticking through his lip, and then MJF is then squeezing fluid out of it, and it's just spraying everywhere. Very, very sick stuff. Very sick visual. Granted, what was in the syringe, my guess is it could have been anything. I'm thinking it's water. That was my first thought, is okay, they probably just had water in there. But either way, that looked sick as hell. MJF then hit a Alabama slam onto the barbed wire chair. Deadeye onto a barbed wire chair from Hangman immediately after. Hangman then hit another Deadeye through the table off the apron. MJF then went on the other side and hit a tombstone off the apron through a table. That's when Hangman then grabbed the light tubes and broke them over MJF. He then used some skewers and pounded them into MJF's head and then hit the buckshot lariat. At that point, Hangman then brings out a dog collar chain and ties it around MJF and himself. So now we got a mini dog collar match inside Texas Death. MJF yanks Hangman off the top rope through a board of barbed wire that was set up on top of a table. They then fight off to the stage and hit a belly-to-belly off the stage through an exploding table. That looked sick as hell. But then both men get back into the ring. Hangman goes for buckshot one more time, but he doesn't get it because right as he's about to jump, MJF cuts him off and then chokes him. While MJF is inside the ring, Hangman is getting choked from the apron, and he got suspended in air until he passed out. And that is how MJF retained the world championship from Hangman Page. Hangman can no longer wrestle for the world title ever again. What does that look like? I think we're going to have to wait tonight to find out. But either way, it was a phenomenal pay-per-view, phenomenal Texas Death match. I do have a few criticisms about this show. The first one I touched upon briefly, the 1 counts. Fucking stop the 1 counts. If I remember correctly, there was one in FTR versus Young Bucks. There was one in Konosuke versus Moxley. There was one in Swerve Strickland versus Brody King. And there was one in Andrade versus Bandito. In no way, shape, or form should there be 4 1 counts on a singular pay-per-view show. Hell, there shouldn't be a 1 count point blank period unless it's the start of a match. That it's just uncalled for. That was first criticism. Second, blood. Only certain matches should have gotten blood. Unless it was done hard way, which I highly doubt. The Young Bucks and FTR didn't need blood. Konosuke and Moxley didn't need blood. It helped tell the story, but did they need it? No. That should have been saved for MJF and Hangman Page only. And then the final criticism I have of Revolution was there were too many matches. And this is a very, very common theme with AEW and pay-per-views. Granted, the in-ring aspect of what AEW does with pay-per-views is fantastic, but the problem is there's too many matches when realistically some of these could have been on Dynamite. I personally didn't think that we needed Megan Bayne and Lena Cross versus Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale on pay-per-view. Didn't need that match. There's one. We did not need the Dogs versus Orange Cassidy and Friends. Didn't need that. We probably could have went without Mystico and Jet Speed. Didn't need that. And honestly, I don't even think we needed Marina Shafir versus Toni Storm on the show. So that's 4 matches that you could have cut. Which 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 matches for a pay-per-view is the perfect number of matches, especially when these matches are going 15 plus minutes. But when you have an extra 4 matches that could go up to an hour and a half, that's another extra hour and a half that you're trying to keep people's attention and to keep people invested enough. Which, granted, you can only do so much for so long, but 8 matches should be your max. There should never, ever, ever be more than 8 matches, because then that's where fans start to tune out and they start to forget everything that they just watched. Those are literally my only criticisms. Other than that, I thought Revolution was fantastic. And then finally, we had Monday Night Raw that happened on Monday. Show started off with all the masked men appearing ringside. Rollins then rolls into the ring and he says he created the Vision and he will be the one that will kill the Vision. And if you stand next to Heyman, consider yourself marked for death. Talks about hitting Heyman with the chair and stomping him. And that's when Paul Heyman then comes out and he looked just completely just torn. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He looked bruised, battered, broken, and just looked distraught. Seth tells Paul he will cut him out like a cancer. And Heyman says he wasn't going to come out here, but he didn't want to miss this for the world. He says Seth wants to FAFO. Well, then FAF5. And that's where Brock Lesnar's music hits. And as Brock gets into the ring, he has a stare down with Seth Rollins. The fans are already chanting, holy shit, because we're starting to think, okay, is Seth going to wrestle Brock at WrestleMania? However, we know for a fact Seth is not cleared yet, at least as of right now. But as they're having a stare down, the lights go out. So we're thinking something's about to happen. But whose music hits the PA system? They played Oba Femi's music and the crowd went apeshit. That is a pop that I actually went back and listened to another 5 times. The crowd was going just absolutely ballistic. They had huge Oba chants. Oba, Oba. And they were so in rhythm that even some of the fans were starting to change it up. They're going, Oba, hoo, Oba, hoo. Very, 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 very electric. And as soon as Brock and Oba are staring at each other, Seth Rollins starts to come closer to Brock. And as Brock tries to scare him away, Seth rolls out. And Brock ends up getting hoisted up, popped up into the air, and caught in a fall from grace by Oba Femi. Very, very we are not used to seeing Brock take big bumps like that. And that was a huge bump for Brock to take. And then as that happened, Brock is laying on the mat and you can see him like trying to talk to Oba from the ground. I believe what he said was, put your foot on me and point at the sign. And so that's exactly what Oba did. He put his foot on Brock's chest and pointed at WrestleMania, only signaling we have our Brock Lesnar match. We finally got what we asked for. We got Oba versus Brock at WrestleMania. That match is going to be fantastic. I am very much looking forward to that. And it's a marquee match too. Then we had El Grande Americano versus the original Americano. Nice solid TV match, but this storyline needs to end soon. Ludwig Kaiser, the regular El Grande Americano, wins. Don't really care. Liv Morgan video package. She said that Finn's time in Judgment Day was on borrowed time, and she said she enjoyed watching his fall from grace. She then says, with him gone, there is a new throne, and it's her. And so essentially, she was the mastermind. She's like, I let all this stuff happen, and when it was time to strike, we took you out, and now I run the Judgment Day, and it's going to be better than ever. Very, very well done. Liv Morgan killed it with this video package. Roman Reigns enters the building, and him and the Usos dap up, and we actually saw them throughout the entire show. Shortly after he entered the building, there was another backstage segment between Roman and the Usos, and Roman says that he doesn't care if people think he's a part-timer. To his wife and his family, he's a full-time dad, and that is his true legacy. Very, very well spoken. AJ Lee versus Bayley for the IC title. This was a very solid TV match. Both women did great in this match. Bayley taps to the Black Widow, so AJ Lee ends up retaining in a very, very good match. Like, the match was very back and forth, and both, like I said, both ladies look great. They both look great in their performance. But after the match, Becky Lynch attacks AJ Lee and hits her with the IC title and then holds it up over her, essentially leading to, okay, we're going to get our rematch between Becky and AJ Lee for the IC title at WrestleMania. On paper, I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. I'm just curious to see what they're going to do from now for like the next 4 weeks going into Mania to spice things up a little bit. We had Penta versus Dragon Lee for the IC title. Before the match, Penta says Pierce can pick anybody because he's a true fighting champion. I will say, though, me personally, I'm sick of open challenges. We've been seeing them way too much, and it just screams lazy booking. Dragon Lee answers the open challenge, and the match was actually very good. Penta and Dragon Lee have great chemistry. They both killed it. Penta wins with the Mexican Destroyer, and then after the match, both men ended up shaking hands and hugging each other. Dragon Lee's going to be great. He just needs more substance. He needs more of an in-depth look at his personal life, his character, just something that the fans can really gravitate towards. I feel like he's just missing something, but Penta has been killing it. He's going to do great with this IC title reign. I'm curious to see what this looks like for Mania and who Penta is going to be wrestling, but I mean, as long as he hangs on to that IC title for a little bit longer, we're going to be just fine. Backstage segment, Paul Heyman and Logan Paul and Austin Theory. He says the Vision need to shift their attention from Seth Rollins onto the Usos now, because the only way, without our powerhouses, we need to build up more power through titles. So they need to take out the Usos for the tag titles. And that's where both men agreed, and they went on their merry way. Maxine Dupree versus Natty. Nobody cares about Maxine. Nobody cares about Natty. This was a story, as far as the match itself, it was a story of a rear naked choke. But either way, nobody cares. Maxine taps to the sharpshooter. On to the next. Randy was on the phone with somebody and says that he will see them very soon. He then adds that he had a conversation with somebody who has a brain, who made him understand who he is and why he turned on Cody Rhodes. He then says, I am a killer, and wrestling has more than one royal family. Stephanie Vakir versus Raquel Rodriguez. This match was fine. After the Devil's Kiss, Liv popped up on the apron, and Raquel took advantage. Io Sky then comes out to take care of Liv, but Raquel takes her out. That's where Stephanie then takes out Raquel and Liv. Raquel goes for the Tejana Bomb on Stephanie, but Stephanie catches her up in a roll-up pin. 1, 2, 3. Stephanie Vakir beats Raquel Rodriguez. And then our main event. We had Roman Reigns come out, and he asked San Antonio to acknowledge him. And he says that they know whose show this truly is. He says he is the beginning, the middle, and the end of the show. He says that Punk gets confused on whose show it is, and that's where he actually calls out CM Punk. So then Punk comes out, and Roman welcomes him to the main event and welcomes him to his ring. They exchange war with words by using their real government names. Punk then says he's surprised he hasn't taken a swing at him yet. Roman says he's on everybody's mind all the time. He says Punk will literally say anything. And he says Phil hasn't main evented anything this year. Punk says that he didn't want the Usos to get caught in the crosshairs last week. He said right message, wrong messenger. And he asked Roman who the real tribal chief is. Roman says he repeats the same shit all the time. He says maybe he could ask his wife on how a real top star should be. That was literally the only huge line of the promo, which was, I was actually shocked. This was very underwhelming. Punk doesn't let him leave once again and says he will destroy him at WrestleMania. Roman then calls him delusional. He then says he's making everybody look stupid because he's at the top of the card and he's old. And Roman saying the word old is what triggered CM Punk to punch Roman in the face. And that's where the two get broken up. And that's how the show goes off the air. I was genuinely disappointed in the Roman and Punk face-off. It seemed like they didn't really have anything that they could have said to each other to change things up. They didn't even mention the fact of CM Punk calling out Roman's dead father. They didn't mention really anything. It was just literally like a repeat of the last time they were in the ring together. Nothing of note happened. Nothing new was said. Nothing was enhanced. I am glad that Punk hit Roman, but punching Roman for calling him old? Is that the reason that it was enough to trigger CM Punk to hit him being called old? I feel like what they should have done is Roman should have taken a shot at Larry, the dead dog. Be like, you want to talk about my dead father? Let's talk about your dead dog. Like, that would have made so much more sense for Punk to hit him. And then that's where, if you want to get very personal, that was your chance. But they didn't do that. It was all just kind of like thrown together, and it didn't seem like it really had any sort of course. It was just a bunch of shit that they already said to each other. So that was very underwhelming. And that was actually the end of Monday Night Raw. This show was not very good. Outside of Brock and Oba, this show wasn't very good. Granted, you had some solid matches between Penta and Dragon Lee and Bailey and AJ. But outside of that, we got nothing on this show. Nothing. Which is sad. It's really sad. Because this is WrestleMania season. And everything just feels so underwhelming. Like, I can't stand things feeling so underwhelming for your biggest show of the year. Like, please, somebody make it make sense. But either way, as far as the wrestling world for this week, I was so content with Revolution that I could easily just look past what's happening on Raw and SmackDown. Like, I'm like, as far as matches for Revolution, like, that made up for all the bullshit that wrestling offered this week. So genuinely, I was happy. I was like, all right, I really can't complain. But honestly, that's really all that happened this week. There really wasn't much of anything outside of Revolution and Brock and Oba. Other than that, it was just same old, which, like I said, it sucks, but you know, what can you do? That's what's going to do it for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on that bell for notifications. Feel free to follow all of my social media. All the links for that will be in the description below. And until Thursday, when I go live playing some video games, or if you want to tune in next week for episode 10, we'll see you guys then. Peace out.
Summon the Spectre.